guys, welcome back to Hot Takes and Deep Dives. This is Jess, and I want to welcome a returning guest. We have Gibson Johns here. Hey, Gibson.
Hi, everyone. Hi. So excited to be back. Had so much fun last time. So
I'm so excited to look at you again. You know that you are. I have named you as best looking host in the Bravo community.
I mean, you're gassing me up. That is just I'm blushing.
So Gibson and I did the RHONY trailer reaction video together. So I feel like this is going to be a really good time for us to regroup, find out where you are emotionally with New York, Beverly Hills. I mean, if you have thoughts on like this past season of Summer House and Atlanta, like I would love to hear those. But I want to go deep on how we currently feel at this juncture now that New York and Beverly Hills, I feel like we do have a good sense of like
how it's going to be. In particular, zooming in on the new women. Like I want us to like really focus on Leah, Elyse Slane, Sutton, and Garcelle. I mean, I'm here for that group. I'm here for it.
And Gibson, you're here on a very special day because, guys, New York, we're recording this on Friday. New York just aired last night. And you might recall that we did an episode where we recapped a filming event that we were actually part of on stage, interviewed by Countess Luann.
Talk about bucket list. Come on. Not only being on RHONY, but also having a little interview moment with Luann. Like, it doesn't get any better than that.
The best part of it is that I can't even get Countess Luann to come on. I couldn't get her to come on Out in the Wild, let alone this podcast.
She's playing difficult to get. Okay.
But she can get me, apparently. But
what does that say? I don't know.
God. I think you'll be interested because you've been in a lot of tapings too.
Yeah, I was at 2 for this past season. I think we touched on that last time I was on. But I was at that fashion show, the Sonia Morgan one. I left before the actual fashion show, but I was at the like pre-show cocktail mingle moment.
And how was that?
You know, it felt a little bit all over the place. It felt definitely a little bit last minute thrown together. I was obviously just there to like watch them film and just like observe it all.
Yeah.
And that was obviously before I had no idea what Leah or Elyse were bringing to the table. So it was just kind of interesting to watch all that unfold ahead of the show. But it's fascinating to just be at one of those events and see how like unusual they are just because of the cameras and all the lighting and things like that.
Maybe we'll do this first, the behind the scenes of like this event. I'll allow you, like, you can ask me anything. Like, I want to like allow the listeners to like fully understand how disastrous this event was. Because
it was as disastrous as it like appeared on the show.
It was worse.
Got it.
It was more awkward. So basically, this is how I got invited, and this is why I was part of it. So you know how Luann was saying like, oh, I met this girl, Chanel. She invited me on her podcast. Okay. So this chick actually was on my old podcast. We interviewed her. Her name is Chanel Omari. She was a cast member on Princesses Long Island.
Right. Oh my God. Why did that not come to me when I was watching last night? I don't know, but got it. All making sense now.
So I had interviewed her nearly a year ago, and it's actually a really good interview if you can find it. She talks all about how basically she was Lindsay Lohan's assistant and like quote unquote producing partner. Take all of this with a grain of salt.
Of course. It goes without saying.
I mean, but she did grow up on Long Island, obviously. She is close with Dina Lohan, and she did and possibly still does have this relationship with Lindsay. And she claims in that interview that she is the one who called the paparazzi the night of the infamous photo with Paris, Brittany, and Lindsay Lohan.
God.
Where they're in the car.
Right. Oh, I know. I actually recently read about that night because I think Lindsay and Paris like did some interviews about it or Andy asked them about it when they were on his show like in the fall. So there's been some stories around that. And they did say that somebody called the paparazzi. So
yes, it was Chanel.
Wow. I mean,
the producer of this insanely awkward and disastrous event. So basically, how I know Chanel is, long story short, we have a very close mutual friend. Like, one of my best friends used to work with her. Chanel, like, after she stopped working with Lindsay, she went into like other production, and she wound up working as a producer on the Maury Povich show, as did my best friend. So we share this mutual best friend. So Chanel has always like kind of been around at my friends' birthdays, whatever. So when I started a Bravo podcast, she, I think, had like started some version of a podcast. I don't think that podcast exists anymore. I'm not sure how real it ever really was.
Right. It might have been a little bit constructed for our moment. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
And so I had run into her at this mutual friend's engagement party last year. And I was like, hey, I'd love to have you as a guest. So she came on our show. And then we like really stayed in touch after that. I don't know how, but she somehow got linked up with Luann. And concurrently, she was trying to put together a live show, like a live podcast taping. Mm-hmm. And so it went from, I really want you to be a guest at my live podcast. Like, I want to interview you. Like, you're really fun and like fun stories, whatever. I was like, of course. Like, in my mind, I'm thinking this is going to be at, I'm sure you've been to live podcast tapings before.
Right.
They're usually at like small comedy venues.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But what was this was at Slate, which I've been to before.
Which what?
I don't know. You go. I want you to tell your story. Yeah.
So it went from like, I want you to be a guest. I was like, oh my God, I was flattered. I was like, I would love to. At this point, like, Luann's like not even in the picture. This is just a random thing that to do for fun. And then a week later, she's like, I think Luann is going to take part in it too. And I was like, whoa, like, I can't believe she agreed to that. Then it turns into they're going to be filming, at which point I was like,
love to hear that.
Whoa, I couldn't believe that Chanel was pulling this off. Because
right, that's big. That's a big platform for her to just, talk about this up and coming podcast that she's trying to put together.
It's literally a podcast that doesn't exist.
Right.
Like, she had done like 5 episodes. Then it turns out that they're filming, which I could not believe that she managed to. I guess Luann wanted it to be filmed because it's just furthering her storyline. I think the women are always looking for things that could potentially become content.
Yeah, and I think Luann loves to be on any kind of stage, and I think that also she was also concurrently working to incorporate more comedy into the Countess Luann show, which like she did that, Marry, Fuck, Kill thing she was talking about during the BravoCon performance of Countess and Friends, which like was horrible. Mm-hmm. But I think that like it sounds like it was just kind of a perfect storm for both sides of the equation.
At this point, we're like a week out from the event.
Okay.
And I was told it's an anti-bullying fundraiser, but it's a comedy event, which those two things don't make sense.
And Ramona called that out.
Yes.
I agreed with that. I was like, wait, this just like feels a little bit mixed messagey.
So everybody that was on the show, and you really saw I could not believe that they showed the performances. I knew that Jacques was going to perform.
Even Jacques just performing and doing stand-up, I'm just like, okay.
He bombed. First of all, they showed maybe like 3 minutes of his set, would not leave the stage. Like, he was trying to do stand-up for what I'm pretty sure he was on stage for like 15 minutes and bombing. So we're told that it's an anti-bullying comedy event. Very confused. The only direction we really had, or like each performer that you saw, was to tell a story, tell like a comedic story about like kind of how you were bullied.
Okay.
That I guess had like a positive ending or like a comedic, like, but
that you can laugh at now. It's like, it's been enough time that you can like laugh at it, I guess.
Yes.
Okay.
So I'm like scurrying to like, come up with my thing, which eventually I'll tell you what I said after. my thing, which like you saw, like this is like the tail end where I like eventually like run off the
you had your line though. You had your line. You said, thank you guys for coming.
I mean, I've made it in show business.
Oh, completely. Everyone has to have their Real Housewives moment at some point in their life, and you have had it.
So I think it was the day before that we all found out, like everybody on this email chain found out that it was going to be an all cast event. I mean, I had invited all my friends to this. Like, all my friends bought tickets. You know, like the tickets were maybe like 10, $15. I literally had, I think, like 15 people. Like, I just thought of like even my friends who don't even watch the Housewives were like, because I mentioned in my email to them that it was going to be filmed and that Luann was definitely going to be there. And I'm pretty sure like that there will be
somebody would come to support her. Right.
My friends were just like on top of it. They were just like, say no more. Like, they were very excited.
Love that.
So even the ones who don't even watch Housewives, they were like, I gotta watch this shit show. so many, I couldn't believe, like, so many my people came, and you literally see them in the audience. Like, at one moment, it zooms in on the crowd. You see 3 of my friends and my partner clapping as if they look like they are parents at like their daughter's like middle school performance.
That feels about right, though. You know, they were there to support you. They were proud of you.
I mean, you've never seen more proud people in your life.
That's all you need. That's all you need. I'm just curious. I'm curious, like, we got a lot of like their arrivals and like what was going on before they sat down and the conversations. How much of that were you observing or privy to?
Okay, so I had quite a kiki with Tinsley before. So we're walking to the venue, like I said, which was Slate, which is way too huge of a room. It's actually a restaurant, I think.
It's like a restaurant club, but like at night it's a club. Like at BravoCon, I'm pretty sure that Jennifer Aiden got a table that one night at that place.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Slate it's huge. It's probably meant to fit like 1,000 people. But there were nowhere. It was way too big of a room. I don't know why they rented this space. Maybe actually this, like 2 weeks ago on Summer House, they showed Slate again. It was the venue where
Hannah and Luke went on a date there.
Exactly.
Yes. And maybe they're just really filming friendly. Maybe they just like have some sort of setup with them. There have to be places like that.
Another place which was seen like 2 weeks in a row on Bravo, the scene with Tinsley and Dale at dinner?
Yes, the place in Union Square.
In Union Square. I forget what it's called, but that was the restaurant where Carl and Jules like met up.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
That's the kind of thing that only like a New Yorker would recognize. Yeah. And
but like, also I live here, so I pass it every day.
But it's like you just wonder, okay, are these places just like on speed dial? Like are they last minute fallbacks, or like who knows? They're all pretty spacious, I guess, but who knows?
Yeah, they can allow for space for cameras and whatever. So we get there, and immediately I see Tinsley. They made Tinsley redo her entrance 3 times. Which, do you know why they do that? Like, what's the issue?
It could be somebody that's standing behind her. It could be that it wasn't flowing. I interviewed Leah this week, and she told me they had her redo something, and she like couldn't do it naturally. They wanted her to redo, the first episode when she's like, "What's Giovanni?" and she's looking it up on her phone in her confessional. Uh-huh. She genuinely did not know what Giovanni was because she didn't watch that season of New York when that was like a thing, and so she looked it up, and like that was like the one that we saw was her first genuine look it up and reacting to what it is or figuring it out. But they wanted her to redo that several weeks later, and she was like, "I'm literally such a bad actress. Like when I redid it, like it didn't work." So that was my genuine reaction.
Why would they want her to redo it?
Maybe I mean, like her reaction wasn't like some like epic reaction to what it was. She's like, "Oh, so it's like a designer or something like that." So I think they probably wanted something like bigger out of her. But they definitely redo things a lot like that, and like, it doesn't really bother me that much. But like an entrance like that, who knows? I mean, maybe she had hair in the wrong place, like on her jacket, who knows?
I think it's the first thing you said. Like if somebody happened to be like walking alongside her, every single person as you walk into the venue of like a filming thing has to sign a release. So if it's just a stranger walking down 20th Street,
they don't want to blur their face out.
Exactly. Yeah, I do think that's what it is.
Yeah. Meanwhile, I remember there was this moment last night when Sonia's walking across the street into that party, and it looks like there's literally like a wind machine in front of her. It's like this is such a glamorous Sonia moment where she just like is living her like city life, and I love her. They did not have to redo that one.
No. So there was an open bar for the first hour of this thing, and Tinsley was just like
chilling. Like she had a drink, whatever it was, but she clearly had been there for a little while. So I think she was like a couple drinks in. She just like plopped down. I sat like right next to her with like my partner and our friend, and somehow she said, and I quote, "So I was on this show, High Society," and I'm like, girl.
She wasted no time. Also, girl, we know.
I was like, I know, like, guys, like, I talked about this on an episode I did a few weeks ago, but if you have not seen High Society, it's all on YouTube for free.
Should I actually watch it all the way through? I've seen, like, episodes, but I haven't,
It's so quick. Each episode is, like, 30 minutes, and you can watch the whole thing in, like, 3 hours. The entire it's a one-season wonder.
I'll do it at some point.
It really gives you a glimmer into Tinsley's true darkness.
Do you think that because obviously the thing with Tinsley is the constant complaint is that we don't actually know her, like she doesn't actually open up. Do you think we know more about her from that show than we do from Housewives?
Yes. Interesting. Because they started filming High Society. Basically, the plot of High Society is it's these socialites, and she's the star of it, and it's her sister, and her mom, and then these other socialites, and it's immediately after her breakup with Topper.
Yeah.
The divorce is finalized, and she's moving from their apartment on the Upper East Side, which they share together, to her own gigantic empty apartment in Midtown for some reason. She moves to Midtown. You see that she's still using the cleaning lady that her and Topper used, and she's like, "Oh, like
can't let go."
Has he had any girls there? Like that's like part of it.
Wow, got it. Love that. So she mentions it right off the bat when she sat down next to you at Slate.
I mean, I wasn't with her for that long, but like,
right.
Yeah, like we started talking about High Society and like talking about the other characters on it.
Incredible.
And that was amazing. She was so fun. She had mentioned that she'd gotten her 2 new dogs, and like I showed her a picture of like my 2 dogs. Like she had like her old dog was a Chihuahua. As you know, you have met my 2 long-haired Chihuahuas.
So adorable.
We just it was very fun. Like I immediately like felt this warmth from her. Like I really, really liked her.
Good. I like.
So this is what you did not see. One of the performers, believe it or not, was Daryn Carp.
Oh, Andy's assistant?
Yes. And
they did not show her on the episode.
And here's why. So Chanel, this world is small, and like obviously Chanel would know Daryn, and she invited Daryn to be part of it. Because the communication about this event was so like, it was spilled out so over like a few weeks, and it was like very piecemeal, the communication. Like part of what I was going to say was I was going to reference that I like ultimately created a podcast, like a Bravo related podcast. I got an email at 7 p.m. from the executive producer of The Real Housewives of New York. It was a mass email to all of the performers while the show is going on that under no circumstances in your act can you mention the Housewives or Bravo. Bravo, 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 Bravo.
Bravo, Bravo, fucking Bravo.
Yeah.
Jesus.
So like I happened to check my email.
Right. But Daryn didn't.
Because I was bored, just like everyone else there. And I'm like, who the fuck is running this thing? Like it just really hammered home how poorly this was executed. So anyway, Daryn did not know that this was a filming event. She didn't know that it had anything to do with the Housewives at all. And like, wow. Daryn can't be on a Housewives show. That would be fucking crazy.
Right.
That's a total conflict of interest.
Yeah, I agree.
So she gets there, and obviously immediately she figures out that they're filmed. Like in 2 seconds you figure it out. And she was really pissed, really upset. And she had, I think to like compound it, not to compound it, just like interestingly, what she talked about in her, like she didn't go for comedy at all. She told like this story how she was bullied by an ex's mother and like called all these derogatory names for being gay. Like she cried on stage.
So it didn't really fit the vibe of the situation.
I mean, nothing fit the vibe. The whole vibe was...
What was the vibe?
The vibe was bizarre. That was the vibe. But poor Daryn, like that was the story she had prepared, not realizing that I don't think she knew it was a comedy thing. She certainly didn't know it was being filmed. And she immediately afterward, we were all hanging out. The performers were all chilling together. And she immediately called Andy and like told him what was going on, like apologized. Like she's like, I didn't know. She was so pissed that she was
blindsided by it.
Totally.
Right. Interesting. That's really interesting.
Yeah.
Like it sounds like if she wouldn't have gone if she knew it was going to be filmed.
No.
Right.
No, you can't invite Andy Cohen's assistant to be on The Real Housewives of New York. That's absurd.
No. Yeah.
So basically the story that I told was how when I was young, so I'm still like a super Madonna fan. Like I have loved her. Like anybody who follows me on social media, like
amazing.
Any of my story content. I mean, I have like limited, like I have a few genres that are like my go-to genres on like Insta stories. I mean, honestly, the content is either Real Housewives, my dogs, or Madonna.
Hey, I mean, those are 3 great categories.
Listen, it's my brand. Like I don't know what to say. Like,
and you know it. Own it.
my dogs, Real Housewives, and Madonna. Like that's pretty much sums up my essence. So I've loved Madonna forever. Like since the first CD I ever bought. Obviously, I had cassettes before, but the first actual compact disc I ever bought was the Bedtime Stories CD from '94. Everyone used to make fun of me for being, because I was so obsessed. Like my whole life, whatever the things that I was into, I was always either like totally obsessed or utterly disinterested.
Right. Which is a good way to be, you know?
And that also has stayed.
Britney for me was for me like Madonna was for you. That's what it was.
Oh, I love that. Mm-hmm. What's your favorite Britney album?
I think Blackout's her best album. Weirdly, the one that I keep going back to recently is Oops. Like it wasn't really my favorite, but like I think I'm like kind of getting nostalgic about it recently, and I've been going back and listening to it.
Did you see that Glory was charting on iTunes?
Oh my God, I was obsessed with that. Yeah, they got it to number 1. They got it to go number 1 on iTunes 4 years after it came out, which was epic. And they did the same. Didn't they do a similar thing for the cassette that you were just talking about for Madonna?
Oh yes, they did. Bedtime Stories. The album that literally changed my life, and it is my go-to Madonna. I mean, every album is my go-to Madonna album, but Bedtime Stories really is the heart and soul of why I love her. Mm-hmm. And it went number 1 last fucking week, like 26 years after the release.
That's wild. That's wild. I mean, that's up there with Mariah Carey's song, or her Christmas song, going number 1 finally last year. Like that's. You know, we support the legends in these households. So
Legends Only, one of my favorite. Do you listen to Legends Only?
Oh, every week. So good.
I love it.
Anyway.
So the point is, as a young child, I was made fun of for being so obsessed with Madonna. Like, I remember like my cousin's best friend, who is now one of my best friends. Like as we got older, and we're both gay. Like when we were like 10 years old, she used to call me gay for loving Madonna.
Oh my God.
But I think they were confusing. I think people thought I was attracted to Madonna, but I never was. It was that I was inspired by her.
Right. You wanted to sort of like be able to express yourself in the way that she was expressing herself, maybe. You know, like she was so comfortable in herself, and it was alluring. She's alluring. She's like an alluring person. And that's what Britney was back in the day. It's like they have these amazing songs, and it's just like so fun to watch them.
So literally Luann says, so Jess, like, what's your story? So literally it's me. I'm talking directly to Luann, but also like, I know how to like work a crowd in the sense of like, I know I need to like look around the room. Like I made eye contact with like my friends on on each side of the room. Like I know this is being filmed.
You're aware of that.
You know, like I try to like look good. Like, you know, I knew this was being filmed. Never in my goddamn life did I think that I would be seen. I am totally shocked that they used any of the performances aside from Jacques.
Well, I think it was because Ramona provided that really good commentary about the event. And it just, it honestly, that was a really good montage that they did right there, where it was like, they showed all of them just like sitting there being like, what's going on?
So one of my friends last night, so I texted all my friends who went to the event, just FYI, like, be prepared for your like background moment. Like, one of my friends texted, oh, I'm going to be in the foreground. But one of my friends, you know, who I had let know, like, just FYI, like, this thing, you know, you probably forgot about, we filmed this back in September, but like, it's airing tonight. And when Ramona says that, there's a split second where it pans to one of my friends, my friend Jess, and it's literally her just looking totally bored. Like, Ramona says it, like, the voiceover is, I'm really bored. And it cuts. My friend is the only person on the screen for that split second.
Incredible.
And she texted, as I was going to sleep, I said, you were totally on screen, like, solo last night. And she's like, my phone blew up and everyone said I looked really bored. I'm like,
oh my God. She wasn't in the background. She was in the foreground, baby.
I was like, Jess, you were a literal plot point.
Literally. And then they get up and go to the bathroom and do that amazing thing in the see-through door. Oh, I can't. I love them. God.
What else did I say? I talked about, oh yeah, I also mentioned, this is so embarrassing, but I literally said this, like, in front of God and everyone, in front of like the whole cast and like all these fucking strangers. I also talked about how I was made fun, because I was like so into pop culture as a kid. At like Thanksgiving one year, I was trying to explain to my family how good Showgirls was.
That's the hill you're going to die on. Come on.
Yeah, that was the hill I was going to die on when I was like 12. And I remember like bringing, I don't even think I mentioned this in the show. I'm just telling you now. I remember bringing like the New York Times review and like showing it to my my whole
family. They like it.
My whole family.
Like it. It's real art.
But I definitely mentioned Showgirls.
You have to.
At this thing.
I'm proud of you.
That's
fun. Honestly, that's pretty intimidating. They were all right in the front row, right there. It's wild to have to do that on camera, even if it didn't like make the episode. Like, that takes balls.
Well, no, can I just tell you, when they started like cycling through all the different performers, I started getting so anxious
that they were gonna show you.
That they were gonna show. I was like, oh my God, is my Madonna thing gonna be?
Are you glad that it didn't make it, or are you bummed that it didn't make it?
Okay, so last night, as I was watching this, that's such a good question. In real time, I was so anxious. I was like, right. Please God, no, please no, please no. Like, I like prayed to Jesus Christ. Like, I was just, my heart was racing. Like,
of course, yeah.
I don't want to be seen.
Also, they could have taken like the one sentence that was like really embarrassing for you, or like they could have taken like even if they're going to show you that you have no idea what they're actually going to like clip out.
This is in the span of like the 10 seconds that they were like cycling through. And then eventually they show the scene with Ramona in the bathroom saying how boring it is. And then they cut to us on stage with Luann. And then I have my famous line.
Which was?
Thanks, guys. Which is hilarious because I thank the podcast listeners every episode. Like, I'm pretty sure I end every episode with thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys. I mean, guys. Hey, maybe that should be like your new Instagram bio. As heard on a recent episode of Real Housewives of New York City. Thanks, guys.
But now that, you know, it's, you know, not even 24 hours later, but now that you're asking,
I kind of like that you had your thank you guys moment. I do. And I think that like now it's sort of like it's a guessing game as to what you actually said on the stage, and it's
yeah, I've really created a cliffhanger.
You did.
For all the no, it should have been like to be continued, like Beverly Hills this week.
Yes,
which we're gonna get into.
Okay.
But yeah, that's the story.
That's it. Oh my God.
I will say the button on this story. I will say, as we were walking home, I noticed that Dorinda was talking to a producer on the street alone. It's like, you know, this is hours later. Like, this event went on forever. Literally, the only people on the street are me and Hillary and Dorinda and the producer. And normally Hillary would be like, you're not we're going home. Like, you're not
over it. Right.
Yeah, like we're done. Like, you're not doing this. But I think because she was like that proud, like, mom of like a middle schooler, like that night, I think she was like, go do, you know, she was like, you had a big night. Like, she's like, I don't know what you're
finish it off on a high.
Yeah.
Right.
Because she's like, do what you need to do. I knew that I needed to like have a moment with Dorinda.
Yeah.
So as we're walking closer, I see that
Classic.
Dorinda is crying to the producer. We just stop and I just said like, "Are you okay?" Like in a very genuine way.
Right.
You know, she was just saying like, "Are you okay?" And the producer says, "This happens every day."
Okay, that's tea. That is a good little nightcap right there.
Yeah.
Wow, this happens every day.
This happens every day.
It's a little bit dark. It's a little bit dark.
Yes. So that's it. I mean, so I would say the highlights are like the Daryn Carp element of it, that like she was so pissed, had to call Andy and apologize that she was there. And like it was so awkward. The whole thing, nobody really was good.
Right.
So Gibson, you know, so everybody knows, like honestly, if you just go to YouTube and plug in Gibson Johns, you'll see all of his Bravo celebrity interviews, all your celebrity interviews. And you, like you said earlier, you just interviewed Leah McSweeney this week.
Yes, it hasn't gone up yet. I think it goes up next week.
Oh, good.
I think on Wednesday. But yeah, we've been just we do like 2 interviews a week where we're just like trying to catch up with, it's a lot of Bravo people, but not only Bravo people. But Leo was this week and I really wanted to interview her. So I reached out to Bravo and she was honestly so great. Like
how long did you talk to her?
Like 25 minutes or so.
Okay. What was the most interesting thing you got out of her?
Well, I did ask because she's been recreating all those moments on TikTok from of old Bravo moments, and they've been like going viral kind of. And I was like, you said you didn't know about Giovanni on the show, but then you also are really familiar with all these old Bravo moments. Like, what's the deal? And she was like, you know what? Like, it is insane to me that I have to say this, but like, I'm not lying about not knowing what Giovanni is. Like, I literally just did not watch that season of New York. She said she's like obsessed with Jersey. And then I loved when because I asked her, because I was at BravoCon like all weekend last year, and she was revealed as like the new housewife during the Watch What Happens live taping. And I was just like, it must be a weird experience for her because she was this kind of like unknown person that was like being revealed in front of thousands of Bravo fanatics and who like probably didn't care at the time. I just want to know what that was like for her. And she said it was like really surreal. And that after that night, she went to One Oak and she saw Teresa there. And then they hung out at the bar and danced together all night long. And they like partied together at One Oak after BravoCon, which is like epic.
Oh my God.
Which I love. Like, I love it.
That's an amazing coincidence.
Yeah. Yes. And then we also talked a lot about like her decision to drink again and how it had nothing to do with the show. And
what did she say about this?
She was just like, I mean, people think that I started drinking like for the show, and like that's just not true. Like she started drinking 6 months before it started filming. And I think she said like, my mom's concerns about my drinking again are totally valid, but she also has nothing to worry about because like, as she said, she was sober for like 9 or 10 years, I think. And so she really got her head back on her shoulders. And as she said, she was like, if I was going to have a bad experience with it, as I was dipping my toes back in the water, I would have been able to just like step back out of it and like not, like she was sort of has that self-awareness now and that like self-control, she said. So it was really interesting for her to hear about that. And I just think that, I feel like we're only like 5 episodes into this season and we already know so much about her. And I think that is like a really, really good sign because like, I mean, 3 seasons, we know more about Leah than we know about Tinsley at this point, which is just like,
that's true.
No. And it's like, I'm just really respect how open she is about these like pretty like not easy things to talk about. And she's pretty eloquent in the way she talks about them. So it was really interesting to hear from her just in her words, just like unvarnished about that. And yeah, I just think that I'm so excited for her. Like, I know that like, there's stuff that she said in the past, like outside of the show that have brought up. And I try to like separate church and state when it comes to that kind of stuff. I think if you really took into consideration, like a lot of the people's politics and past comments, you would have no one left. You would have no one left. And so I think that like, if you want to think that way, that's totally valid. I'm not going to like discredit that. But for me personally, how I like to have my person on the show and have their like social media, whatever. And then like, I kind of like just not think about the other stuff because I know that's like a little bit, tunnel vision, but that's sort of how I like to approach it.
How do you, so you know how like, during the quarantine, everyone is trying to connect with their audience by going live. And I've talked with a bunch of my guests lately about that and the sort of, who do you want to see go live? Like I was joking that like the best person, one of the better people who I wish would go live was like a Susan Sarandon.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. So here's where I'm at. Cause like we're in week, God knows what, we're 2 months into the quarantine.
Right.
I think they need to stop going live.
Oh, I completely agree. Like, I it's like every time I go on Instagram after 6:00 at night, there's like 5 people going live, and it's like joint lives and like the same. It's just like it's too much, and it's like really self-involved.
Dorinda is spending every waking moment of every day talking to her phone for an audience.
She's addicted to her phone for sure. Yeah,
I mean,
it's a lot.
Even Bethany hasn't gone live.
I know, because Bethany's doing more important things. Let's be real here.
I mean, listen, Bethany is notorious for the 25 little increments of Insta
exactly.
stories.
Yeah,
but I find what Dorinda is doing, it's like I never click onto that. Like occasionally I will, and I immediately jump out.
Yeah, same. And actually, one of the only people who I'll stay in their lives is Leah, because she's been going live after most of the episodes.
Yeah.
And like, I just think it's really funny how she replies to a lot of the questions. She's like, she'll get like a really random or like invasive question. She'll be like, "That's a ridiculous question. I am not answering that."
I've seen her do that.
Pretty funny. It's actually pretty funny. And she does give like some like really good unvarnished like background on like some of the scenes. Sometimes I don't like watch them all the way through, but I'll sometimes click on there if at the beginning of Top Chef is like boring enough, I'll like go into Leah's lives. Yeah, I agree. Overall, I'm like over the live situation.
I think I truly wish that even Leah wasn't going live. Like, I don't want any of them. I want there to be some air of mystery.
I agree. No, and that gets into a point that I've been thinking about recently. As sort of like, I'll see like, oh my God, somebody will be like, did you see that like X person said this on this Instagram live with like Y person? And I'm like, I don't have time to be paying attention to like all this like extra stuff and like. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't know. It's just like it creates like this like almost like oversaturation of information. And I'm just not as if we don't already have that. You know what I mean? So it's like, I'm like, I don't really care if this person went live with this person and they talked about like this old Housewives moment and like we learned whatever about it. Like, I don't know. I agree. I wish there was like a little bit more mystery and to it.
Yeah, we got to keep the romance alive. And
everyone's so bored. I know.
Yeah. Before we jump into Beverly Hills, can we get a pulse check on Elise?
Elise, like at first I was sort of like, because I feel like she either wasn't around or she was around and she like wasn't doing anything. It was just sort of like she would just like show up at like the parties or like the dinner with Ramona or whatever, and it was just like, okay, what is she like contributing anything? But then this week she finally got her confessional moment and she like was calling Dorinda on her like bullshit, and I kind of loved it.
Up until this week's episode, I was convinced that they were cutting all of her confessionals Max and Brett style, the way they did the first half of the season. Okay, so when I look at Elise, I think about Barbara Kay. And as the genius, my favorite Brian Moylan said, Barbara Kay is rolling over in her grave. Okay. Because if she is getting paid, she only better be paid in the scenes that she actually speaks in.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
If you remember back to season premiere last year, Barbara Kay had 3 different confessional looks in the first episode.
Really? Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. So that really shows you like how the different level of like the friend of situation has been.
So let's pivot over to Beverly Hills. Okay. So which show, because these are my top 2, which show do you think is having the better season?
I think that Beverly Hills is having the better season, especially if you just think about where they were last year. I think that they've done a complete 180. It's like we're 4 episodes in, whatever it is, and like every one of them has been good to watch and fun to watch and like having some good drama. I think New York is always like comedy gold, and like I'll always laugh and it'll always be my favorite. But like if you just think about where each show has been recently, I think that Beverly Hills is having a better moment right now. Like I have talked about somebody who I've done a 180 on is Dorit Kemsley. I used to really not be able to stand her. Like her first 2 seasons, it was really tough for me to watch and like put up with her. But now I'm like loving Dorit. I'm loving Erica. I'm liking that they're calling out Kyle. I love Denise. I love Garcelle. I love Rinna.
I can't believe I'm saying this, but I really feel Beverly Hills is having the better season. I look forward to Beverly Hills each week more than New York. And New York is my favorite show.
Same. And I think there's kind of an unpredictability right now with Beverly Hills where you're sort of like, oh, like there are fractures showing in the group that was so solidified last year. You know what I mean? And it's like, I'm not sure that Kyle like sucking up to Teddy is like the best look for her these days, but like it's providing some tension in the group and I'm liking it.
Give me your opinion on Sutton.
Well, Sutton. Okay, I like that she's there. I think that she is like a good presence right now because it's really shaking it up. It's clear that none of them know what to do with her. You know, she's like this Southern belle who's like pretty abrasive, not afraid to say what's on her mind, thinks that she's like super fashionable when she really like kind of isn't.
She has the worst taste I've ever seen.
Yeah. And
money can't buy you taste, honey.
Definitely not. And I think that's good for Beverly Hills, though. I think like Beverly Hills doesn't do well when there's not like an unpredictable, like, you know, that's why Brandy did so well for the show. That's why Kim Richards was so good. It's like there's these unpredictable like enigmas in the cast. And so she's great for the show. That being said, I think she's trying too hard. I think that she thinks she's being way funnier than she's actually being. I think that whatever like her line delivery in the moment felt like to her, it's not coming across that same way on TV. Like she'll have a confessional moment where you can tell she thinks she's like telling a joke or having like a quippy one-liner. And I don't laugh. Like I look like I watch with my family and we like look around and we're just like, what is this?
Is it weird that tell me if am I like on or off about this? She reminds me of season 1 Camille mixed with season 1 Dorit.
Interesting.
Like she's trying.
It's too hard.
Like saying anything to
get a reaction.
It's a thirst.
It's a thirst thing. Yeah, and it's a thirst thing. It's a little bit of like I'm a better than you thing. I think there's a little bit of that, and that's definitely what like Dorit and Camille had as well. I think you're right. I've seen comparisons to like Dana, the 25,000 sunglasses friend of from early on. I've seen some of that from like
that's a throwback.
I know, but I've seen that on social media.
What's so interesting is that like if you didn't know, you would think Sutton was the housewife and Garcelle was the friend of.
I know. I think you're right. And I hope that Garcelle... here's the thing, though. I think that Garcelle is having just more of like... There's nothing wrong with her introduction to the show so far. Like it's kind of like a classic introduction where it's just sort of like she's easing into it. If you compare it to Leah, who's like just like off to the races, like obviously it's a little bit disappointing in that respect, but... I don't think there's anything wrong with somebody like Garcelle easing her way into the group. It's a little bit like Denise last year. She didn't like totally hit it out of the park on her first run. Teddy certainly did not hit it out of the park on her first go round.
Teddy's striking out on her third.
I know, and so it's like I'm not holding it against Garcelle that like she hasn't like made a huge impact yet. I think there's time for that.
I think she's going to.
I agree, and I really like her energy, and I think that even if you can just like look at like her comments on social media and like when she was on Watch What Happens Live and I think with Kyle, that to me is like promising, and I think that like she's very secure in like who she is and herself, and I think that not all the other women necessarily are all the time, and that's like a really good asset for her in this group, I think.
Yeah, I really like her. Like I find her to be so likable. Like you said, like really good energy. She reminds me in a way of like the Potomac cast in that to me they're all really likable. Yeah. You know, like Robin Dixon, like I love her. Like I would want to be friends with her. Now listen, you don't need a housewife cast full of people you want to be friends with, but I like watching Garcelle. Yeah. And I do think that once a rift happens, she is going to tear somebody to bits.
Yeah, no, I can totally see that happening. I think she's like dipping her toes in. I think that's okay. What's so unique about what's happening right now is that we have like these like 2 additions to Beverly Hills in New York that have like made a huge splash already in such a short amount of time. But that's not the normal. You know, that's not normally what happens with a new housewife. Usually we give them a season to really get going, you know?
Just like talking about Denise, I could watch Denise and Aaron all fucking
day.
It is so wild. I just didn't realize last season how weird Aaron was. I just didn't. Like, I don't know, maybe I just like totally missed the memo on that, but like so far this season, I mean, especially the dinner party, obviously, but like he's a weird dude. You know, he's a good looking guy, but he's like pretty bizarre.
I could watch the two of them all day. I find them like they're so good looking and they're so like they've got these conspiracy theories like Scientology shit. Like I would watch like 45 minutes of what are they up to?
I know.
Because I'm sure every day is like they're up to some nonsense.
Oh, for sure. For sure. Those conversations are wild.
Do you have any like inside scoop on how long it's going to take to get to the Brandy stuff?
I don't. I've been trying to piece it together. I haven't like sat down and done it, but like I know it happens right before. It happens pretty close to the Rome trip, which is probably towards the end. But I think that was something that a lot of people were concerned with. I think a lot of the thought process that I saw was like, okay, the first episode was amazing because it ended with that, you know, flash forward which was the last 2 minutes of that episode. But so I think the concern was that like it would be pretty like weighted to the end on this season, but it hasn't been that way. Like it's obviously not as intense as like the Denise and Brandy situation is going to be, but we're still getting drama and we're getting like really good episodes so far.
I really loved this week's episode. I think it was my favorite of the season. You know, this is like the Teddy's retreat.
All in, baby.
I loved this episode.
It was good.
The whole thing with Kyle and Dorit about like getting glam to not work out and like and she called them like fake workout clothes and like the photo shoot and like that photo that they put up. I found that all intensely entertaining.
Well, I was thinking about this in the shower yesterday where I was like, this thing on Beverly Hills, I think it was almost a complaint at some point, which was like the glam has like just been so over the top since Erica joined, and like then Dorit took it to another level, and it's like been this whole thing. It was only a matter of time before the glam became a plot point.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it really hadn't like impacted anything until now, and I'm, you know, it's only natural that it was going to at some point in Beverly Hills that like the glam was coming into the drama, and I'm loving that. And Dorit was like so unapologetic about it.
Speaking of glam, what did you think of the Summer House reunion at home?
Okay, for as good, it was the best season yet of Summer House.
Totally.
It was the best season they've ever done, and they really pulled out all the stops, and I'm really proud of them. That being said, the reunion was very boring. It was not good. I did not enjoy the reunion. I really wanted to. It just didn't work for me.
Why didn't it work for you?
It just, nothing really happened. And I don't know if that's like...
Well, we got to see just how much of an asshole Luke was.
Yeah, we definitely saw a different side of Luke. I think that wasn't conveyed on the show. And I think I interviewed Kyle and Amanda right before the finale. And Kyle mentioned sort of like how he thinks that like the producers gave Luke the benefit of the doubt as being like a first season person who like, you know, whatever.
First season housewife.
Yeah, I guess. But like, I don't think Jules got that benefit of the doubt, which is interesting. But so it clearly seems like there was something happening sort of behind the scenes with Luke that like a lot of them actually didn't really like him. That's what it really seemed like to me, especially from I guess we did learn that in the reunion. But like, I think Jules came to like play on that reunion. She was like in it to win it with like that asshole comment, misogynistic asshole comment. But like, I don't know. It just like didn't really pop for me ever.
Paige's outfit.
Paige and Jules like were treating it sort of like a
Housewives reunion.
Reunion.
Everyone was dressed for a different event.
Totally. Carl had like a t-shirt on. So I'm just sort of like, I mean, Andy literally had a sweatshirt on, and he defended it by saying it was like a channeling Carl, which like I'm not really sure about, but I just don't think he really wanted to get dressed up for that event. But I don't know if like how predictive of like the Atlanta reunion that is, you know, like I don't know if that just I don't think it is predictive of what the Atlanta reunion is going to be.
Well, I don't think that they overly edited the Summer House reunion. I think we pretty much just saw it as it was, and then I think it's obvious when people's video cuts out or somebody's audio gets garbled, that's when we just do a still on like Andy or a still on like one person just like staring into space. It's because whoever's talking, there's something fucked up with the technology. I suspect that they filmed the Summer House reunion the same way they filmed
the Watch What Happens Lives, because it was Watch What Happens. It was technically a Watch What Happens Live.
You're right.
And I think, well, Andy said on his radio show that they filmed the Atlanta reunion and the Vanderpump reunion. Everyone got sent a laptop, and they're not using Zoom for those reunions. They're using some other he said it's some high-tech software that's way better than they're literally using Zoom for Watch What Happens Live. And so I think it's going to be a glossier, definitely,
that's good to know.
Definitely a glossier edit.
Yes, for sure. And I think we need that. That's good, because we're used to glossy on these things. And so I think for Watch What Happens Live, when it's not a reunion, it works. But I think their Summer House reunion just didn't connect.
The final thought on Summer House. Are you aware that Hannah and Paige, speaking of going live, they go live every single night.
Every night
they're getting every night at 10 p.m. They're getting 10,000 views a night.
Wow. That's a lot. That's good for them. I knew they've been doing that almost all of quarantine, actually, which is a really big commitment. And I kudos to them.
I've never watched it, but what the hell are they? Does anybody know what they're talking about, and how is it that riveting?
They call themselves the Giggly Squad. That's what they have named themselves, and they have their own Instagram account and all that. I think they talk about random stuff. I don't think it's just about Summer House. I think it's pretty all over the map. So for them to capitalize on it is great. I know that Paige said they had been thinking about, before all the stuff happened, they were thinking about doing a podcast together. So I think this is probably the precursor to that. I bet you eventually they'll do a podcast together or something like that. Which is, again, people love them together. I think that those two single-handedly turned Summer House around.
Oh yes. Unfortunately, Ramona doesn't have time to watch a podcast.
That quote is just an all-timer. Podcasts are getting really popular right now. I just don't have the time to watch. Same.
Gibson, this has been so fun. Do you have any Do you have any final thoughts? Anything that you want to say, you're desperate to say about Beverly Hills, New York, Leah, our girlfriend?
I think I got a lot of my thoughts out. I love coming on here just spilling it all, because you realize how pent up we all are about some of these things. But I will say, we're getting a lot of really good stuff from Bravo right now. These two shows, especially New York and Beverly Hills, I'm happy with these two. I was really sad when they first delayed Potomac, but I'm actually really happy that
it would have been too much.
It would have been actually really overwhelming to have Potomac on right now. And I'm glad we'll be able to savor it in the summer, and when we're probably not that much else is going to be new. And so, that's going to be an all-time great season, I think, of Housewives across franchises ever, season 5 of Potomac. So for all y'all listening who do not watch Potomac, you need to catch up right now. You can even start with you don't have to watch season 1. I recommend the whole thing, but that is one of the best casts on Bravo right now.
Totally. I totally agree. My advice is to start at season 3.
Yes, I think that's when Candace joins.
Yes, season 3, and then last season, which was a blockbuster, season 4, and then you can bang this out in 2 weeks.
Yes, and everyone who I've told to watch Potomac individually thanks me. They literally it's. I think people think that it's just such a random place and whatever, but it's essentially DC Housewives. Let's be honest, DC area Housewives, and because they couldn't bring DC back on its own, and Potomac it gives me the most life. And it's just we recently had a new scandal this week with Ashley and her husband, so it's they are gonna never stop giving it to us. And
I know the shock was that he cheated with a woman.
Yes, with a woman, and the video is really disturbing.
Yeah, I watched the video earlier today.
It's not good. it's I felt really icky afterwards. Tell
everybody where they can find you online.
Yes, you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Gibsonoma, Gibsonoma. On Twitter, you'll see a lot of incessant live tweeting of all your Bravo shows.
It's really good. No, Gibson, it's really fun.
Thank you. I try. And yeah, it's the same name on Instagram and Twitter. And then that's where I'll also post whenever I do interviews with people. I have some really good ones coming up, and I'll continue to do them. Yeah, all good stuff right now. And everyone just stay happy and healthy and safe, because that's all we can ask for right now.
Awesome. You guys, make sure you follow the show account, Hot Takes Deep Dives on Insta. You can find me, JessXNYC, if you have any questions or comments. And we'll see you soon.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
Fun.